Long before electricity lit the winter nights, before alarms guarded homes, Scandinavian families believed someone else watched over their house. Not a ghost, not a god, but a small, hidden guardian. He lived in barns, walked silently through kitchens, and protected families while they slept. If you treated him kindly, prosperity would follow. But if you forgot him, misfortune could arrive before morning. Tonight, we meet the unseen keepers of Nordic homes, the Nisse, the Tomte. Welcome to timeless Europe, where history breathes through legend, and ancient traditions still whisper through modern life. Across Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and even Iceland, people once believed every farm possessed its own spirit. This was a guardian older than Christianity, older than the Viking kings. It was a being connected not to temples or battlefields, but to the home itself, the hearth, the animals, the land. These beings were called the Nisse in Norway and Denmark, and the Tomte in Sweden. They were small in size but ancient in power. Tonight, we enter a world where folklore lived beside everyday life, and where respect toward the unseen often meant survival. To understand the Nisse and the Tomte, we must first understand Scandinavia. Winter dominated life. It brought months of darkness, frozen fields, and deep isolation. Families depended completely on their farms. If the crops failed, people starved. If the animals died, survival itself was at stake. Nature was powerful and unpredictable. So, early Nordic people believed survival required a partnership not just with their neighbors, but with unseen helpers. Every farm, they believed, had a spirit tied to the land, a presence that remembered all the former generations. The Nisse wasn't just some random spirit. He belonged to the farm itself. Some stories say he was the spirit of the very first farmer, buried beneath the soil. Others believed he was an ancient earth spirit who had simply adopted the household. Either way, he was always watching. So who was the Nisse? Descriptions remained remarkably consistent across centuries. He was a small old man with a grey beard, a weathered face, and a distinctive red cap pulled low over his thoughtful eyes. He was always dressed like a farmer from long, long ago. He moved silently, and could become invisible whenever he wished. Yet everyone in the household could feel his presence. When he was around, milk stayed fresh for longer. The animals remained calm, and tools would mysteriously appear right where they were needed. When the Nisse was pleased, farms prospered. But when he was offended, things would quickly change. The Nisse's greatest responsibility was the livestock. Under his watch, cows produced more milk and horses grew strong and healthy. Barns remained safe from fire or illness. Farmers would claim their horses were brushed at night by unseen hands, their manes braided perfectly by morning. Sometimes mysterious footprints would appear in the snow, leading absolutely nowhere. People truly believed the Nisse worked while humans slept. They said he repaired fences, protected animals from predators, and even warned families of danger through their dreams. But he demanded one thing above all else: respect. Every winter solstice, a tradition that later merged with Christmas, families performed an essential ritual. They would leave a bowl of porridge with a generous pat of butter in the barn. This wasn't just a quaint decoration. For them, it was a matter of survival. The porridge was a gift to the Nisse, a thank you for his year of protection. The stories all warned of the consequences if the butter was missing. If there was no butter, the Nisse would feel deeply insulted, and an insulted spirit could be very dangerous. Folklore is filled with cautionary tales about what happens when the Nisse gets angry. Farm tools would vanish without a trace. Animals would suddenly fall ill. Milk would spoil overnight. Strange, unsettling noises would echo through the barns. In some stories, an angry Nisse would tangle the horses' tails into impossible knots or even overturn wagons. His actions were never truly evil, but they were corrective. The Nisse punished laziness, cruelty, and disrespect. He demanded a sense of harmony between the humans and the land they lived on. The message was crystal clear. A home must be cared for, properly and with respect. In Sweden, this spirit became known as the Tomte. The Tomte was often depicted as more solitary and mysterious. He was frequently seen walking alone through snowy fields in the dead of night. Swedish poetry described him as ancient and thoughtful, a quiet watcher contemplating humanity from a distance. The Tomte symbolized patience and continuity, representing the passing of generations. He embodied the idea that our homes remember those who lived there long before us. When Christianity spread north, many of the old gods and pagan beliefs began to fade away, but the Nisse remained. Priests discouraged belief in these house spirits, yet families quietly continued their traditions behind closed doors. This was because the Nisse was never worshipped like a god. He was treated like family. So, the folklore adapted. The house spirit survived by becoming a cultural tradition rather than a religious one. Over the centuries, the Nisse continued to evolve. The red cap remained, the beard remained, but a gift-giving spirit started to emerge. Eventually, the Nisse's image began to blend with the traditions of St. Nicholas, creating the beloved Scandinavian Christmas figure, the Joltomden. This gentle gift-bringer of the winter nights is now a staple of the holidays. But behind that modern holiday joy hides a much more ancient house guardian. The legend of the Nisse reveals something deeply human. In a harsh and unforgiving environment, people sought reassurance. The Nisse represented the hope that someone was watching over their ordinary lives. Not kings, not great heroes, but families. The legend taught that homes mattered, daily work mattered, and kindness mattered. The Nisse rewarded responsibility and care. Even today, you can find small Nisse figures displayed in homes all across Scandinavia. Children grow up hearing the old stories, and some farmers still quietly leave a bowl of porridge out on Christmas Eve. They don't do it out of fear anymore, but out of tradition. Because legends endure when they carry comfort and meaning. And perhaps some of these traditions persist because, even now, people still feel like they're being watched over. Tonight, across Northern Europe, snow will settle over quiet wooden houses. Lights will glow behind frosted windows. Families will sleep peacefully. And somewhere, a small figure might be walking silently through the barns and kitchens, checking the doors, watching over the animals, and guarding the homes just as he has for centuries. The Nisse never sought fame or glory. He only sought balance, care, and respect. Thank you for journeying through legend with us here on Timeless Europe. If you enjoy exploring Europe's forgotten myths and ancient traditions, please subscribe and continue the journey with us. Because history doesn't just live in castles or on battlefields. Sometimes it lives quietly, right beside the hearth. And perhaps tonight, a house spirit is still watching over someone's home.